What's up guys, Noah here. Welcome back to another Python video. Today, we're going to be going over double for loops. So, have your idle open. Go watch the first video in this playlist if you don't know where I am. Got a whole tutorial explaining how to download idle, how it works, how to get started. Let's get into it. So double for loops. So another little cue. If you don't know what for loops are, if you're still kind of struggling on for loops, I recommend go watching my original for loop video before you get into double for loops because it's just going to be double trouble from there, and it's not going to be fun if you don't know the basics of for loops. But if you've been following along with the videos, hopefully you have a really good understanding of what for loops are now. So hopefully I can go through a little bit quicker and kind of explain double for loops for what they are, and not really having to go through the syntax of like what a for loop is and how they fundamentally work. So let's get started. So I'm going to make a list, and if you remember from 2 videos ago, we can put lists inside of lists. So I'm going to have a list that just has some lists inside of it. So 1, 2, 3, we'll say 4, 5, 6, and then we'll say 7, 8, 9. Cool. So if you remember, right now we have a list of length 3, spot 1, spot 2, spot 3. So if we run a for loop, so for I in a list, I'm not going to do the range of length. If you remember, range of length gives us like our index numbers and whatnot. I purely want to show you guys the actual like stuff inside of the list, 'cause that's the best way to learn this. But just as a reminder, I could have done like range length of a list, and this would give me the index 0, 1, 2, instead of giving me the list of 1, 2, 3, the list of 4, 5, 6, and then the list of 7, 8, 9. It'd be a range of length. Spelled it wrong, but yeah. I'm just gonna do directly into the actual values. So if I print I can't type or click anything. You see it prints 1, 2, 3, because this is the first spot. And then it prints 4, 5, 6, and then it prints 79. And you'll notice it prints them inside of the list because the first spot as a whole is a list. And if you remember from 2 videos ago, we can get the specific indexes inside of these lists. So like obviously this is index 0, and then this would be index 1. So I of 0, we'll say of 1, is always going to print technically the second thing in each list. Because it's I, which I can only be this list, or this list, obviously. And then I have 1. So this list index 1 is 2, because 0, 1, and then 5, and then 8. So that's one way you can really get into those specific values. But the more reasonable way is going to be by using a double for loop. So there's nothing crazy about it. It's just you remember when we have our indent here, this means we're inside the for loop. So if I do another one, so now if you remember before, it didn't matter if I named my iterators the same. But since we have a double for loop, they're back to back, now it matters. So I have to name it different. I'll name it I2 in I. So this is the part that could be a little confusing. So if you remember, our first for loop goes inside of our list, and then it's pulling out the values this list, and this list. But I'll keep the print I. So now these are the values of I. So I is equal to this list, and then I is equal to this list, and then I is equal to this list. So when I want to go through the for loop again, I now want to go through I, because I is now becoming those smaller lists. So what it's going to do is we're going to go through our list with our for loop. So it's going to go to this first spot. So normally in our first for loop, we're just going to the first spot, printing this, second spot, printing all this, third spot, printing all this. If I write a print statement here, so now with our double for loop, what it's doing is it's going to the first spot, and then it's going to the first spot in here. It's going to print this. Second spot in here, print this. Third spot in here, print this. And that's the last thing inside of this list. So then we're back out to this for loop. And then let's go to this spot. and it's going to print everything in here in order. And then it's going to go to this one, and then print everything in here in order. And these lists obviously can be different lengths, and it doesn't matter because for loops repeat for as many times as their things are in a list. So like this thing could be one thing long, this could be 5 things long, this could be 100 things long. It's going to be able to print all of these out. So if I run this, you can see when we print I, it's equivalent to 1, 2, 3, the list of 1, 2, 3. And then now I'm going to make a for loop that goes inside of this list. You can see with the for I, 2, and I. Now that we print it, it's going to print every single thing inside of the list. And then when it's done with this, it's not going to go back up here. It has to go all the way back up to the top. Because this is it. Once you print everything inside of this in the second for loop, you're just going to head right back out to the first. So you're done with this guy. All right, time to go back to this guy. So then this guy goes to the second one. And when he's in the second one, now there's another for loop that I can run. So then it's going to print 4, 5, and 6. And then that ends this for loop, and then that gets back to this for loop. And now you can finally go to the last one, which is 7, 8, 9. And then it prints 7, 8, 9. So it does seem a little confusing. I know. There's a few different ways to go through to have double for loops. You can have 2D lists like I have, or you could just have two completely different lists. Let's say we'll give them string values, why not? So for nums in blist, print nums, and then for strings in print strings. So the other way of using a double for loop, yeah, you see like that came out as a lot. But the other way of doing for loops is that you can have two completely separate lists. This isn't really recommended. Most times you're going to be going through stuff like this, but you definitely will be going through stuff like this. But most times it'll look like a double for loop. But if you can see, you start from here. It goes 1, and then it prints everything out in that second list, and then it goes to 2. So what this is doing is this for loop obviously has a for loop inside of it, so it doesn't repeat the big step until everything in the little step, everything inside of, is already taken care of. It's the same concept of like how all for loops work, but now like you're just repeating more stuff inside of it. So for this guy, we'll start off. So for 4 nums in blist. So the first thing in blist is 1. So that's where we're going to start off. We're going to start off with 1. So now we're going to print 1, which it prints 1 right here. So don't mind, I'll just highlight this. Don't mind any of that stuff. That's from the last one. So it's going to print 1. And then now for strings in CList, it's going to print strings. So it's going to start at A, cool. And then repeat. Then B, repeat, and then all the way to E, which it does. And then once it hits E, there's no more of the for loop, so it exits the for loop and goes back to the big one. So nums was just already 1. Okay, so now it's the next thing. Now it's 2. Then we're going to print 2, as we see, and then 4 strings in CList. So now it's a completely new thing. It completely resets. So now we start back at A. It's going to print A, go back to strings, print B, C, D, and E. And then once it prints E, it's going to go all the way back up to the top because that's the last thing inside of this list. And then now this guy's equal to 3. And then this for loop completely resets again because for loops, remember, they're completely different lines of code every single time that you run them. Unless you have an accumulator value, which I taught you guys a few videos ago, you can't really hold values or variables inside of them because they're just going to repeat every single time that you call and run a for loop. So that's why you notice we have a huge line of stuff. We have 1, and then A, B, C, D, E, 2, A, B, C, D, E, and then on and on and on and on. So that's really all I wanted to go over for double for loops. I know it could be a little confusing. Feel free to rewatch the video as many times you want. As always, I'm going to end off with the quiz. And then next video, we're going to be going with for loops again. this time with dictionaries with lists as values. So last video I had dictionaries and I showed you that it goes, oh, you guys can put lists as the values. We'll be doing for loops with those. So it'll give you another chance to look at double for loops because that's what we're kind of going to be going over. So enough for the quiz. It won't be anything crazy. Let's see. I gotta go one. So write a function that takes two numbers. So write a function that takes two numbers. So inside your function, make two lists that are the same length as those two numbers. Remember, we can do this with our range. So like for example, we can say range of 5. If we say a is equal to range of 5, this gives us a list that's in range of 5. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's how you would do this. So have it print out anything you want between running for loops over both numbers. So for example, so if I called, I'll show you an example. It's the easiest way to kind of explain this. So if I said, say write out of 3, 4. So what it does, it's going to take in the values 3 and 4, and then we'll have a list that's 3 things long, and then a list that's 4 things long. So for example, so I'll have it write hi. We'll say if mine writes hi, it's going to write hi the first time, and then it's going to repeat 4 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it gets to the next spot. So basically, just write something like that. So it's not going to print 12 times. So for the first index, like it's the same thing as this one, really. Like imagine this thing was 5. If I put in 5 and 5, instead of you seeing one ABCD, it's going to be hi, all the way down. So take a minute, figure that out. If you can't, no worries at all. Pause the video. I'll get back to you guys in a second. All right, let's get into it. So we're gonna write a function. So def, I'm gonna just call it write out because I did an example on that. It's gonna take in one num value and then some other num value with our parameters. So I'm gonna make a list. And remember, this is inside of a function, so this a list has nothing to do with this a list. It's equal to range of num1, and then b list is in range of num2. Cool. So what I just did was I made a list that's in range of whatever this number is, and then whatever this number is. So if it was 5, it'd have the indexes 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which would be the length of 5, but the range obviously always goes up to 4 because we're starting at 0. And then we have to go through one of our lists first. We'll say for, let's call it I, in a list, print, have it print hello. And then now we need it to repeat for the second one. So for, call it I2 in blist, have it print anything. We'll have it print see ya. And luckily, we don't have to return anything. We're just printing stuff right into the output box. So if I run right out, and I'll say 3 and 4 because that's the example I gave. If I run this, you can see we say hello, hello, hello 3 times because 3 was the first number we put in, and that's the first for loop. And then it prints see ya 4 times because that's the second number that we put in, and that's how many times there's repeating for the second for loop. So if you got that, you got 100. Good job, and you guys can do it. If not, don't feel bad at all. There's no shame at all. So as always, leave a comment, join the Discord if you're confused on anything. I'll be sure to answer any questions you have as soon as possible. Next video, as I said, we're going to be going over double for loops again, but with dictionaries. So it gives you guys another chance to really look over and understand the concepts of how double for loops are working. Thank you guys for showing up in this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.